It's said that in a perfect world, a car would be engineered in Germany, designed in Italy, built in Japan, and marketed in the US. Well, this is not the perfect car, but it is the 2020 Maserati Levante SUV. So we're going to take a kind of a deep dive into this vehicle and try to understand why this 105-year-old car company with legendary sports cars is building a 5-passenger, 2-row SUV. But they had to do it because everyone is doing it. Ferrari's got one coming up. We just saw the all-new Aston Martin SUV. So everybody in the luxury game has to have one, and Maserati didn't want to be left out. It's been out for a couple of years now. You see them rarely on the road, but they're selling as much as the rest of their lineup combined. If you were to approach the rear of this Levante, it looks pretty nondescript. It's a very basic SUV, nothing really stylish about it. What really stands out about the Maseratis are this massive grille, which is very unique to the industry, what's under the hood, and the awesome exhaust note that really seems to be part of every Maserati's DNA. So we have a few different engine options. The base models all have a 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine producing 345 horsepower, and they make a nice little growl, and this is kind of the bread and butter engine. If you want to move up to the GTS, you'll get the 3.8-liter V8. Pretty small displacement for a turbocharged V8, but you'll get 550 horsepower. And if you go up to the Trofeo V8, 590 horsepower. It's a lot of power for a mid-size SUV like this, but that's really what Maserati's all about. They want to be loud. They want you to hear them coming. So this car is, as much as it is visual, it's really more about the exhaust note, which we'll experience here shortly. Maserati is a car company that's struggling in the US, and they're learning the hard way that you can't just call yourself a luxury brand. You really have to play to that market. And when you have vehicles like the BMW X5, Mercedes-Benz, it used to be the ML, now is a GLE, Porsche Cayenne, the list goes on and on for this segment. This is really towards the bottom, kind of a specialty thing, especially when you look at that Trofeo, which is their flagship in this particular model. That starts at $170,000. Cargo space is always important to crossover and SUV owners, and the Levante does an adequate job. When you start to look around here, you see a lot of bits and pieces from the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, which is in the brand, and you see a lot of Fiat Chrysler bits and pieces throughout this vehicle. And that's a shame, because when you're getting up into this MSRP level, you expect more. They've done some nice little touches here to protect the vehicle and whatnot, but overall, especially with the taillights and certain bits, it just doesn't jump out at you that this is a really premium vehicle. Compare this to the Range Rover Sport, and to me, that is where this vehicle should be, because that's where it's priced. So we're in the driver's seat of the 2020 Levante, and the first thing we notice is that the start-stop button is down here, lower left. Maybe they're trying to be cute and compete with Porsche, which is notorious for having their ignition switch on the left, but a little gimmicky for my liking. The shifter, I've heard some people complain about the shifter. I don't think it's that bad. It's shift by wire. It is what it is. It's a little sensitive, but like anything, you're going to get used to it, just like all these controls. So I think they've done a good job, but not a great job. And this is a $90,000 vehicle. You got some nice carbon fiber, but overall, it just doesn't blow you away like a Range Rover Sport would, or a Porsche Cayenne. I think if they're trying to price their vehicles as those, they have to perform, but they also have to look the part, and then you also have that customer service aspect. And I hate to say it, but I think they really failed on all three. But we're going to take it for a little lap here. See this little clover leaf? That's really where this vehicle stands out. Just very stable and minimal body roll. So we're gonna hit one of those just to have a little fun. And when you put it into sport mode, you're gonna get that better exhaust note. Massive paddle shifters here, and they're fixed to the steering wheel column as opposed to the steering wheel, which I'm not a huge fan of, but for this vehicle it works because, let's be honest, most people aren't going to be taking this on a track or anything. I don't even know how often they'll use the paddle shifters. But one of the things that every Chrysler product has are the controls in the back of the steering wheel, and this vehicle is no exception. This is an example of where the two companies share technology. Some people like it, some people don't. I think they're really close to the paddle shifters and not exactly that user friendly, but I suppose if you're an owner and you drive this vehicle long enough, you'll get used to it. So nice exhaust note, very quick acting transmission. When you're in sport mode, it holds the gear a little bit longer. So it is a fun vehicle to drive, but so is a Cayenne, so is a Range Rover Sport. Most of these, over 80%, are going to be leased, and there's a reason for that. They just don't hold their resale value. Maserati is a car company that's been building sports cars for 100 years. That is where their reputation and heritage lie. And this Levante crossover is definitely out of the norm, but they had to do it. It's a necessary evil to keep those customers. You know, a lot of these will probably be influenced by the enthusiast in the family, whether it's male or female, but the enthusiast, they don't want to just drive a RAV4 or a Highlander. They want something a little more exciting, and that's really, I think, what drives this. And this is only the 345 horsepower version. Imagine 550 or 590. That's a lot of power just to be getting groceries or dropping the kids off at school, but it will make a lot of noise, and it does have a certain presence, especially from the front because of that big, bold grille. That logo that really stands out from some of the other. It's very bold, very in your face, and that's what these guys are going for. Seating position is good. Seats are relatively comfortable. Nothing competes with German cars, in my opinion, as far as seat comfort. Range Rover is right up there as well, but these are acceptable for the price range. As you can see, the vehicle accelerates quite nicely. Transmission works nicely with the engine. I love those little shift notes and the exhaust note. So they really do a good job of having this sports car symphony in this Levante. One of the things that they've also borrowed from the Chrysler Dodge group, which I really like, they have it in vehicles like the Hellcat, is that when you hold down the downshift paddle, it'll just keep shifting. I love that, so you don't have to keep pulling it. Not bad for a crossover. So I'll give it 5 stars as far as fun to drive, great exhaust note. Probably give it about 4 stars for looks. I think the front is nice and aggressive and unique, but the rear is very nondescript. Interior, probably 3.5 stars. Not a lot of technology going on here, but overall, a nice vehicle to lease, but probably not one I would recommend to buy. I just think their resale value, if they're sedans and sports cars are any indication, they're just not going to hold their value, and you'll be left with an upside down vehicle. I'm Ron Doran. Thanks for watching. See you next time on The Driver's Seat.